Nigeria are stepping up preparations for the 2027 general elections following the release of the Act 2026 and a revised timetable by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The new law introduces major reforms, including mandatory digital membership registers linked to national identification numbers and candidate nomination through direct primaries or consensus. While the ruling All Progressive Congress APC says it has built a database of over 10 million members, the Labour Party admits funding challenges are slowing its preparations. The People's Democratic Party says it is ready for the polls, while the African Democratic Congress warns the new requirement may disadvantage smaller opposition parties ahead of the 2027 elections. Okay, for this conversation, we will be having legal practitioner Abdul Karim Musa. Thank you very much, Abdul Karim, for joining us. I mean, the 2026 Act has compressed timelines. We know there is reduced notice of election from 360 to 300. Candidate list submission from 180 to 120 days. And then we have INEC's publication of candidates list from 150 to 60 days. All these together, stricter deadlines, is it likely to expose political parties to increased risk of pre-election litigation when you think about compliance with direct primaries or consensus selections?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Please, I do not really get your question.
Okay. With all the rules that have been put out by INEC, what are the challenges you see for political parties with keeping to deadline? The PDP says it's ready, yet today we had a court judgment that seemed to say otherwise. And then we have all the complaints that are coming up from parties.
Yes, you know, the issues preceding the amendments of the Electoral Act of 2026 are enormous, and political parties were in a state of relaxation, I could say, as to their internal party affairs, preparation of candidates for the forthcoming elections, because the attention was all towards amendment of certain provisions of consent to them. So what you can see in political parties is a form of destabilization by the reduction in the number of days that they are required to comply with certain rules with the INEC. So the amendment by the National Assembly and the directive by INEC has the capacity to destabilize the internal party affairs of several political parties. But that notwithstanding, since if a person is if a person ought to have 160 days and now he's got 100 days, there is still sufficient time for political parties to re-strategize. They must turn their attentions from complaining and wailing over the actions of INEC and the ruling political party, because at the end of the day, that would amount to a distraction and focus squarely on taking power for the benefit of the Nigerian people.
We have Tunji Abdulhamid as well. He's a legal practitioner. Join this conversation. Tunji, thank you for being here. I was wondering what your thoughts are about the readiness of political parties, seeing all the concerns that has been raised. Let's take your thought on that in 30 seconds, and then I'll ask you another.
I think bearing in mind that they were all expecting that the election would take place in February next year, and the emergency change of a timetable, which has reduced the number of days, vis-a-vis the regulation by INEC, which has introduced new requirements of e-registration. I think the political parties have been placed in a position that is predicament. In other words, they are in a very tight situation as to meeting the need. Bearing in mind also that almost all the parties, apart from APC, are having one crisis or the other. So this new requirement of e-registration for parties, members, or whatever, may likely be an obstacle for most of the political parties, particularly the ADC and the PDP and the Labour Party and some other party who are not that strong enough to do the needful. For me, like I said earlier on, it will create more difficulty for them to be able to achieve that objective, bearing in mind the need to have a registration across the entire 36 states within a short period of time. I think it's too early and too sudden for them to meet. It will be difficult for some of the parties to meet it.
Okay, let me ask Abdul Karim this. Yeah. Yes, you're talking about the digitization and the challenges that come. The African Democratic Party has warned that the timeline set by INEC could make compliance difficult for opposition party. They highlighted particularly the digital membership registration within a very short period of time. They say it is unrealistic. When you look at the fact that the ADC is a party that seems to be garnering some mileage, what are your fears when their spokesperson say things like this, when it is a direct legal requirement for their participation in the polls? Abdul Karim.
Yes, you see, while we acknowledge the fact that direct primaries e-registration of party members would deepen democracy, the fear of the ADC is quite legitimate, and their fear is that for a party that is just newly constituted, they have not been institutionally ingrained in Nigeria. The membership is still growing, and the structures are still being built across several states. It's going to be difficult to comply with the provisions that INEC has set forth. However, my advice to the party and my position on this matter is that the party must distract itself from wailing and complaining and strategize speedily to conform with the provisions of the Electoral Act. While we are pushing for amendments that will be favorable to all political parties, the political parties must also, on the other hand, be fighting with what we have, be running with what we have on ground, because if they take any action that is contrary to the provisions that we have, the directive, the guidelines of INEC as it's presently constituted, is going to constitute a later problem post-election, during election petition litigations. So my advice to the ADC is to own up and put their house in order to comply with the provisions already set forth.
Some would argue that they're setting the stage for further litigation post-election. But in addition to that, political parties are now required to maintain a comprehensive digital register of members. That's what we've been talking about so far. Tunji, what are the chances that come January of 2027, we'll be talking about conclusion of campaigns, parties ready, or do you see the possibility of the major parties taking the day and the smaller parties just fading off this process and disenfranchising people who would want to be part of the election?
I think you don't have to wait till January. Have you forgotten that the primaries of the party must be done between April and May this year? So that is the starting point. When by the time they start their primaries, you will see the game will change. But what this e-registration will do is that it may not allow new members to be part of the party. It may not even allow new people who have not been able to get tickets in a party move to another party the way they normally do when they fail in a primary in a particular party or a particular place. They move to another party. That will reduce that tension, that probability for them. But you see, the possibility of any party winning election for now is still not clear, even though the APC seem to look like they are ahead of every other party, probably because they are in charge and they are the ruling party and they've been in power for almost 12 years now. So if they are not ready, I will be surprised that, look, that will show that on seriousness if they are not ready. So I'm not surprised that APC is saying that they are ready to meet all those requirements that have been brought upon by the INEC regulation. Or ADC, I'll not be surprised as well if they are not able to meet up, because they are just gathering their momentum. Yeah, you know, people expect so much from this ADC of a party. They are just about forgetting that they are just 1 year as a party. PDP has been facing a lot of crises. Today, we are not even aware. We are not even sure of who is actually in charge, because I know I will not be surprised that this judgment that we'll have today will be a subject of appeal at the Supreme Court. So with
Well,
all this issue on ground,
yes. So much to look at, but we're time constrained, Tunji. I mean, I would have loved to hear your thoughts on Sirake Dixon's new party, the NDC, and its chances with this digitization and 2027. But we're out of time. We'll leave that for another day. Thank you so much for being here.